Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Tolhurst and welcome to the Charlie Tolhurst Show for today. The 12th of February, my goodness, is this week and this month certainly flying through, all the second week of February now. I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach Chambers to round up all the latest news. Hello Zach.
Hello Charlie, hello.
Hello, now your Saturday night does start right here with the biggest news stories from the week, including one right now that is happening in the West, in Europe, and we're going to start with a worldwide news briefing tonight. We wouldn't usually do this, but there's been big developments over in Russia and Ukraine is the centerpiece of this part of the segment tonight because there has been talk of a potential invasion of Ukraine, the potential Russian invasion of Ukraine, which could happen any day, according to many world leaders, including the United States. In the area to begin leaving immediately. Zach, what do you make of the latest developments?
Yeah, it's significant developments, Charlie. I disconnected from a second there, apologies, but I'm back, so I heard what you were mainly saying. There's some really significant developments within the last 24 hours, Charlie, certainly in terms of Russia and Ukraine. Last night, from what I read, Charlie, the US got intelligence to suggest that Vladimir Putin would invade Ukraine. It's just a matter of when and now, according to the intelligence. There's about 130 to about 50,000 that are stuck on the border, that troops on the border next to Ukraine. So that could be from Belarus, Russia, other neighbouring countries, Charlie, that border Ukraine. There's about 130 odd troops there. Now, the fact that there's a certain amount of hospital fields being set up, there's troops there, there's aircraft going over as well, Charlie, suggests that Russia are planning to invade. Now, throughout the last couple of weeks, and what I've seen, Charlie, is that many countries, including the US, have been leading on diplomacy. Emmanuel Macron met Putin a couple of days ago with a really hideous 13-inch distance between them on a table that you could put a swing on, basically, which it looked ridiculous, quite frankly, in my opinion. The table, and there's also been meetings with recently tonight, a phone call, I believe, between Biden and Putin as well, and I believe this week as well, Olaf Scholz met the president of the United States as well. So there's been a lot of conversations going on, Charlie. This also as well, Russia's foreign ministry has met with a number of people. I believe Antony Blinken on the phone this evening, and Liz Truss the other day. That was a car crash, Charlie, no doubt about that. That was an absolute car crash. The Liz Truss's meeting with the Russian foreign minister, absolute car crash as well. But so as you can see there, there was a readout tonight, basically the situation I think the White House put out, talking about, basically Biden giving his honest thoughts about what was happening, what he thought to Putin, and giving his stern warnings that, if this invasion does happen, that the European countries in the West as well would basically come together and give sanctions. Now, I have to say, Charlie, one of the things, the countries that are sort of been less aggressive behind the scenes, but I think I can see them being very aggressive when if this happens, is Germany, for example. Germany and France have tried diplomacy. They have tried the diplomacy route, they're not going screaming out and everything like that, but they've tried the diplomacy route. I don't think that's worked so far, Charlie. I think they've not been aggressive enough. I can see them going a bit more aggressive when it comes to, if Russia does invade Ukraine, and you will see the consequence for them too. We know that the likes of Nord Stream 2 is at risk if Russia invades Ukraine. We know that's definitely on the chopping box as well. We know there's economical sanctions potentially, Charlie, as well, that could well happen and hopefully will happen if Russia does invade Ukraine. We know there's a lot. We know there could be personal sanctions, but the escalation over the last 24 hours, Charlie, has been pretty significant because we've seen the likes of US ask its citizens to leave Ukraine. We've seen the US embassy being evacuated. We have seen certain countries, Germany, Israel, France, UK, evacuate its embassies and tell them citizens who are living in Ukraine to basically leave. This suggests they've got intel, Charlie. It suggests that this invasion is imminent. They wouldn't be evacuating them at a short notice. If they didn't think that Russia was going to be invading Ukraine, they wouldn't be evacuating these embassies and wouldn't be telling their citizens to leave. So there is serious stuff on the way, Charlie. And what is being projected is this. First of all, I think what's going to happen is according to the intelligence, Russia will start a false flag for a first. Then there might be aircraft bombings and sort of thing that bomb grounds and buildings and sorts of, and then they'll probably get the troops going and actually invade Ukraine. That is actually scary, Charlie. That is an extremely, extremely horrifying thought, and this could result in, mass casualties. The fact that troops are going to go in, you got the Ukrainian army going to have a go doing drilling exercises and fighting exercises as well. It's going to be a horrible, bloody battle. Let me just say this: if it does happen, Charlie, that could see thousands of civilians killed, innocent people, by the way, not just military and army members, but members of the public potentially as well.
No,
so
horrible.
This is serious, Charlie. This could be. Some people say this could be the start of World War III. Well, I bloody well hope not. But generally, it's going to create a new conflict with Europe, Russia. It certainly may well start a Cold War or something, Charlie.
Yeah.
But it's severe. The situation is starting to deteriorate, Charlie, in between Ukraine and Russia.
I have to say, Zach, I agree with you, and I have to say as well, I'm concerned about this getting to a point where Russia might end up potentially invading Ukraine. And my problem is if you look at what happened in World War II, okay, I don't think this is going to be anywhere near like what we saw with Hitler when he invaded Europe.
Oh, no.
Of course, remember World War II when Hitler invaded Czechoslovakia in 1939? He then targeted us in 1940 and 1941 with a blitz. And that resulted in what? Over 30,000 people died in nearly 9 months of bombings. It was horrible. I mean, Don't get me wrong. I don't think this will escalate nowhere near as far as where we did. But, I mean, Zach, this is for a historical standpoint. If Russia were to do this would be a big moment for the world, quite frankly, in terms of the biggest threat for them since the Second World War.
Yeah, absolutely, Charlie. This is the greatest threat, basically, to Europe for many, many generations now. And I just want to provide you an example, Charlie, because I was talking about where the troops are standing. I don't have an actual picture, but I'll give you an example of what's going on. So this is Ukraine here, as you can probably tell. They will probably have troops alongside where the Russians are. They'll probably have it somewhere around Moldova, around maybe this little country here. They will have troops potentially around a bit to Romania as well. They'll have it probably around Hungary. They'll have it around Slovakia. They'll probably have it around Poland. There's definitely troops at Belarus, Charlie. There will probably be troops around somewhere around Lithuania, Latvia. Let's see where else as well, potentially. Oh, Georgia as well, potentially. They will have troops sitting there as well. So yeah, I'm just trying to give you an example here, Charlie, of where these troops are coming from. They're surrounded in all areas, Charlie, around this area, this area, this area, this area. So, and they're continuously building up. And yeah, this is a problem, because if they can invade Ukraine, Charlie, they could get all our enemies and all stuff. They could invade Poland if they really wanted. They could try Poland next if they really wanted to dare to. If they're that stupid and everything like that, they could try there. I don't know. The endless possibilities of this, Charlie, is completely scary about an invasion. Putin was complaining that Ukraine not follow the Minsk agreement and all that sort of thing. But whatever you think, right? Okay, I've heard some. I have to say, Charlie, some hideous arguments this week. I really have heard some, quite frankly, hideous arguments, and some from the left and the right of the side of it about the arguments, right? Okay, because I've heard some of the people basically side of say Russia saying, well, this is basically because so we can stop Ukraine joining NATO, and actually it's the fact that NATO are bringing troops to outside the border of Ukraine and stuff like that means that Russia's to say that Russia's not the aggressive one is not true. Well, that's rubbish, Charlie, because quite frankly, what's going on here is Russia is actually being the aggressive one in here. If we sit back and do nothing, right, okay, we will just give a free rein to Putin to do whatever he wants. We just sit back and do nothing, and then nothing gets noticed. We just shut up, let him get on with it, and then, he just goes ahead and does it. Nobody cares. Well, we do care, quite frankly, Charlie, in this way. The fact is that NATO is not being the aggressive one here. Russia is being the aggressive one because they started in the first place. They put all their troops outside Ukraine. They're the ones that are being aggressive, and they're the ones that potentially given the sanctions. Okay, so there's people on the left that are saying this, Charlie, which is quite frankly ridiculous. There's people on the right side of Russia, which is also ridiculous as well. I'll give you like Tucker Carlson, for example, siding with Putin on this one. You have people on the left like Jeremy Corbyn and Diane Abbott, who was speaking at Stop the War rally yesterday, basically blaming NATO for all this rather than sort of playing to the pro-Putin message. I wouldn't normally call them out, Charlie, because I have been a Labour support Jeremy Corbyn sort of before, but goodness me, they're totally wrong on this one, I'm afraid, with what's happening. But yeah, it's scary times, Charlie. And I think, personally for me, if we're not signing with Ukraine, then we are in another planet of what's happening here, Charlie. We really are.
Yeah, I think the trouble we've got now, I think Putin should be in trouble for this. If he does this, he should get arrested, like what they did with Mussolini all these years ago. Arrest him, lock him up. I know I'm being extreme, but look at what happened with Benito Mussolini, what he did to Italy. I mean, you've got to think sanctions have got to be imposed. And remember, this goes back to Kabul last year when they got, the Taliban took over. It could be like that, Zach, really.
Yeah, it's basically what is going to happen, right? Is if Ukraine is invaded, it just becomes another part of Russia, basically, because what the Russians plan to do is install a pro-Putin puppet, basically. So there wouldn't be a democracy there. It'd be a bit like Afghanistan, really, where Russian freedoms are curtailed and everything like that. It just becomes another part of Russia at the end of the day, and that's not good, Charlie. Ukraine can be its own country with its own rules and everything like that, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't need the likes of Russia dictating what it can and can't do, really. Basically, that's what it is, Charlie.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, guys. We'll keep you updated with Russia and Ukraine because it's clear to me that something is happening now, and we'll keep you posted on the news, and we'll share more on our social media pages about the situation regarding Russia and Ukraine very soon. But moving on to the UK news briefing now, Boris Johnson is facing a questionnaire by the Met Police after it's accused he broke lockdown rules by hosting another party in Downing Street. And also, Met Police Commissioner Dame Cressida Dick has now officially resigned from her post as chairman of the Met Police. I have to say, if you are a Met Police fan, this won't be good news, but for me, I think it was long overdue. It was clear to me that the whole debacle of Downing Street's party scandal was getting very crazy with this Sue Gray report not being published in full. Zach, what do you make of this announcement?
Yeah, do you know what, Charlie? I think it was time for Cressida Dick to go. And it appears from what reporting has been saying that the Mayor of London basically lost confidence in her. And goodness me, Charlie, I know there'll be a lot of people that are not fans of Sadiq Khan that probably will be happy about what he just did, Charlie, because he basically forced the Met Commissioner out of office. And, for those who hate Sadiq Khan, if you really do, and I know there's plenty of people do, you probably don't like Sadiq Khan a lot, Charlie, but I expect those who are anti-Sadiq Khan will probably like what he did for the first time in ever, basically. because Cressida Dick was pretty terrible, really, as Met Police Commissioner. I mean, there's certain things like the Severa Everard case that she handled as commissioner totally badly. And I think what's caused this resignation as well, Charlie, is not only Sadiq Khan, but the report that came out in the last week about the state of the Met Police as well, Charlie. I mean, we have currently serving officers that are racist, sexist, homophobic, misogynist, and they're still in their roles, Charlie. And it's up to Cressida Dick to come up and find a solution to that, to come up with a plan to fix that problem. Because that's basically, if you have an organisation that is sexist, racist, misogynic, homophobic, just plain cruel, then quite frankly, you're running the terrible organisation, and the responsibility comes at the top, Charlie, on this one. So Cressida Dick is responsible for this, and quite frankly, her handling of things for the last 3 years has been terrible. It looks like she's gone disappearing. It's funny because Cressida Dick resigned at 7 p.m. a couple of days ago, when on the very same day she resigned, Charlie, she was going on BBC Radio London in the morning, basically saying, "I'm not going to resign. I have no plans to resign. I have no intentions to resign." And then we get, well, was it 8 hours later, Charlie? 9 hours later, she's resigned. So when you hear people saying, "I'm not going to resign," that means they're going to resign. Just plain simple in the future. It's not a matter of when, it's not if. So when you hear people say, "I'm not going to resign," right, they're going to resign. Let me just tell you that for certain, Charlie. But yeah, her departure is long overdue, personally, in my opinion. There's going to have to be change, going to have to start at the top, Charlie, no doubt about it, as well. But will it come in the form of the Prime Minister, though? Because basically, the news reports suggest that even if he does get a fixed penalty notice, he's now being interviewed by the police, about 50 of them are being interviewed. If he does get a fixed penalty notice, he may even refuse to resign. My goodness. He would have broke rules if he got a fixed penalty notice. He would have committed a criminal offence, Charlie. And yet he would have refused to resign. Now, if he can't resign after not following the rules, why did we bother creating COVID rules in the first place? Just to break them? Come on. It's so bad, Charlie. And it's incredible because he's saving his own skin here, Charlie. Others have resigned for other rule breaks or breaking guidelines. So we saw the Scottish Chief Medical Officer from a couple of months ago resign. Professor Neil Ferguson resigned from Sage because he was meeting up with people that he wasn't supposed to. Matt Hancock as well was caught with a tiffy on the cameras, and he resigned.
And Dominic Cummings as well.
Dominic Cummings as well, but that was something else as well. But he got caught breaking the Spirit's lockdown rules badly. But yeah, Charlie, I mean, come on. If they can resign, why can't the Prime Minister? Come on, it's just basic fact. He just wants to save his own skin.
Yeah, well, you can see as well, 15 MPs have called for Boris Johnson to go. It's thought that many of them have privately wrote to the 1922 committee of backbench Tory MPs calling for a no confidence vote in the Prime Minister. He will face a vote of no confidence if 54 Conservative MPs write to 1922 committee chair Sir Graham Brady, and will be ousted if more than half his MPs subsequently voted against Mr. Johnson. Tobias Elwood, one of the Conservative MPs, written a letter, said, "We need to get this resolved. The nation is looking at this. There's a massive level of trust to be regained. We need to move forward. This is a mess," is what Tobias Elwood had to say. Yeah, I can say Boris Johnson is hanging on by a thread, but will he be Prime Minister? We don't know. I think Boris, at the moment, clearly in a bit of denial here with COVID rules. But just moving on before we move on to the next part of the show, I want to stay with the UK news briefing now because I want to talk about the rest of the devolved countries. Now, obviously, last couple of weeks ago, we heard the shocking report of Paul Gavin's resignation from Northern Ireland, as well as First Minister, very short tenure in charge. But the other countries of the COVID rules here in the UK, Scotland, Wales, taking completely different approaches here. Wales getting rid of COVID passports, but Zach, Scotland seems to be held in limbo. COVID restrictions extended again for about another 6 months.
Yeah, Nicola Sturgeon, obviously, announcing some of the measures that's going to be done. Some of the things that's going to be announced, she announced, was that the work from home guidance is gone. That's in that some ways as well. They've begun the phase back to the office. 2 meter settings is to be relaxed as well. The passports, as you said, are going as well in some areas as well. In some ways, but there's some rules that could be kept as well. I mean, we've recently had a 6-month extension of the COVID rules in Scotland, if I'm correct in saying, as well. So yeah, there are some things that are being lifted, Charlie, in terms of that. They extended COVID for a further 6 months. A lot of people criticising it, I have to say, Charlie, as well. But yeah, I have to say, I think all COVID restrictions are definitely going to be gone from the UK this year, regardless as well. In England, Charlie, can I just point as well? I think it's been we've now got the official confirmation that all COVID restrictions are going to be lifted legally now from, I think it was around the 20th something of this month. So I think it was maybe the 26th, 25th, something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, or the end of February.
Moving it forward a month, because it was going to be at the end of March. Now it's going to be end of February, because the data is actually going in the right direction, and that's good. I mean, today I think that was the lowest amount of cases recorded. I think it was 46,000 cases today, something like that. But we are going to get a statement, not this next week, but the week after, about living with COVID. There's some rumours going about that. I've read potentially that the daily COVID statistics are going to get dropped from April, potentially. The ONS statistics are going to be phased down as well. The end of free testing potentially going to be removed as well. But one thing that is definitely going to be going from the end of this month is the requirement to self-isolate if you test positive. I have to say, Charlie, it's not necessarily a move, that one. That's necessarily supported by the public. Because I read it was at 69% said that they would still isolate in a poll if they still tested positive. And I can see some companies, Charlie, I can definitely see this way it's going. I can see some companies, in my personal opinion, basically say, stay at home if you've got COVID. I know it might not be legal to do that. The legal requirement may be dropped, but I suspect a lot of big companies may want, just to keep their workforce like secure and safe, ask those who have COVID, positive COVID tests, to stay at home for, like, say, 5 days at the minimum until they get a negative test back, just so that they keep their workplace safe. And because there's concern about vulnerable people, those who are very vulnerable and who feel uncomfortable going into the workplace with COVID risk people. So yeah, it's a risky move by the government, Charlie. I don't personally like it. I'd rather keep the self-isolation for at least 5 days if needed to be, for a bit longer, personally. I think they should at least keep that, review it till, say, May, June time, see how this virus is going, and then potentially lift it if the figures are better then. So, yeah, I think there's a risk of some problems there in that department.
Yeah, and Zach, the only other country that's lifted all their laws, I think, is Denmark, if I'm correct. They were the only country to lift all COVID restrictions. So Denmark is the only one to do so far in terms of, like, lift COVID measures. It's going to be interesting going forward, I think. Like,
sorry, I've just had to take my mic off a minute because I'm getting my water bottle.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, Denmark's the only country that's got COVID restrictions, like, has relaxed all of them. So it's clear whether we're going to follow Denmark in that kind of way. I'll be interested to see how we get on with that, because it's very important that we're going to keep an eye on the news with that, because, as I said, dropping all COVID restrictions would mean a return to normal. I have to say, I really think that we should do that, because I know I put something very passionately on social media today about mask wearing. Someone I know, one of my cousins has COVID, unfortunately. I will admit that now. However, though, he has it in his eyes. And we know that droplets fly around in a plane. And if it goes into your eyes, I just kind of feel like the mask does block the droplets going into your face. But it's clear the science just isn't strong enough for these, in my view. So I don't know. We'll let you know in the comments about COVID. Do you think that the restrictions should be dropped? Just let me know in the comments. But moving on now to sports round. I want to start off quickly with some Formula One car launches. A few car launches last week took place. Red Bull launched their car, Aston Martin launched their car, but the one I was going to show you guys tonight was the launch of McLaren with the MCL 36 drivers Lando Norris and Daniel Ricciardo unveiling the car the other day at the McLaren Technology Centre in Woking. And I have to say, this looks absolutely beautiful. A stunning masterpiece is what I call this. An inspiration to the days of the Golf livery. Papaya orange, some light blue in there. Oh, Zach, what do you make of this livery?
It kind of reminds me, it not fully, but it reminds me of their Monaco livery that they ran last year, because they ran this kind of like a mainly blue car at Monaco last year. Now, obviously, as well, there's been some changes. They've got some new sponsors, as you can tell, Volvo as well. But they've added some blue to the sides as well. The orange is mainly the primary source, but there's a bit of black in the middle as well. Obviously, they've retained some of the black as well. You can see they're just a little bit less, but they've added a little element of blue to the car. I have to say, it looks all right. I'll give it about a 7 out of 10. It's bright. It's interesting. It'll look good under lights. Let's just say that, I think it'll look very good under lights. In my personal opinion, when they get it back on track in, say, Bahrain as well. But yeah, that looks good as well. What was the other car launches? Yeah, there was Red Bull and Aston Martin as well, I believe the car was. Red Bull is kind of similar. They have a new title sponsor for this season, Oracle. They're a cloud platform, Charlie, they're as well. But they're now known as Oracle Red Bull Racing. But their car is probably about similar in terms of look. I think that they might have changed the actual colour slightly as well. I think it's more of a matte dark blue compared to previous seasons as well, Charlie. There's certainly in that area, there's certainly a lot more dark and a lot more matte than previously before in that one. And there's the Aston Martin, which kind of again looks similar, but there's some shades of a little bit of green and yellow, purplish, orange there, as you could probably tell. Armico has joined the team as well. I should point out that they're also a new sponsor as well. But yeah, I've been impressed with the car launches so far, Charlie. I have to say, I've certainly been impressed. There's not been some terrible liveries. I mean, the Haas one has disappointed me. It's the only one that's really disappointed me so far, because it basically looks like the same as last year's. But they're not bad so far. I think they all look pretty good in the new 22 spec car, which is obviously totally different compared to last year's car, Charlie, which makes this season a bit more exciting. But yes, good. I think some very good car launches so far. So now, next week, Charlie, we're going to look out for the following. Alpha Tauri is going to be launching on Monday, Williams on Tuesday, Ferrari on Thursday, and Mercedes are launching on Friday, the February 18th. So yeah, how many? Another 4 car launches this coming week, Charlie. So we will have 8 out of the 10 car launches by the end of Friday, Charlie. So I'm very much looking forward to it. To it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. In fact, Mercedes, George Russell did say that they are expecting this season to be more tougher, given the new regulation changes. So I will put myself down. I hope Mercedes get back to that silver arrow livery this year. I don't think that's going to come back, though, because I've looked at the uniform of George Russell today and it looked black again. I just feel like they need to bring the livery back. It was so amazing with Sterling Moss. I hope they do that for the British Grand Prix, for celebrating Sterling Moss's success in the British Grand Prix, and obviously the greatest driver to never win the World Championship. But yeah, it looks like the black livery staying. They clearly wanted to focus on racism, the BLM movement. Political in my view, too political in my view. But yeah, all I can say is Mercedes seems to be sticking with that role or that colour. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton is a big supporter of that movement. Anyway, but moving on now from that, we're going to quickly review NASCAR now. Now, there isn't a NASCAR race this weekend. I think I'm not sure, but there isn't. Don't think there is a race.
No,
this weekend. But
No,
we
there
will
isn't.
review the Bush. We will review the Bush Clash meeting on the show tonight, because I know a lot of you guys wanted me to do a motorsport review. So with Formula E racing later on this evening, which means that we'll both hopefully be watching the event at just on 10 o'clock this evening.
Yes.
We'll preview that race actually as well. But now, Zach, the Bush Clash back and Joey Logano winning this non-championship event at LA. And it was quite an interesting event, wasn't it?
I have to say, Charlie, I watched a bit of it. I watched the heat races. I watched the last chance qualifier. I watched a little bit of the main race before. I didn't see all of it, unfortunately. But I saw the beginning of it. I have to say, it reminded me of the All-Star race, Charlie, because there was a lot of entertainment, I have to say, Charlie. What was happening, Charlie? There was a lot of entertainment. Very enjoyable to watch. Lots of excitement. It's the shortest track on the calendar as well, Charlie, because it's a temporary circuit in the sort of Coliseum. But it was, I think, very enjoyable to watch, Charlie. No doubt about it. I think, in my opinion, as well, Joey Logano was the winner of the Bush Clash, Charlie. No surprise. Interestingly, there he won the main race as well. I drove pretty much a good race, really, to be fair, Charlie. As well in that one, and he won the race. There was quite a lot of excitement, I have to say, just watching as well. We saw the likes of Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe got himself into a bit of trouble, unfortunately, as well. But there's 23 drivers. Logano was obviously the one that won. Kyle Busch was the one in second. Obviously, this is on championship race, Charlie. So it has no implication of the championship or anything. It's not actually started. It's just a free, kind of like a friendly free-for-all race with a bit of extra cash prize for it. But I enjoyed it, Charlie. I enjoyed it. I'd like to see this sort of event happen again next season because I think it worked. It provided some entertainment, and I was very fascinated in it all, Charlie. It provides some good racing, some, especially when you're trying to get past lap cars. It's such a short circuit, Charlie, that it's hard to pass lap cars and the likes of that. You probably wouldn't get all 42 cars on the circuit, really. That's why there's only like 25, 23 starters and everything. That's why they had to do all the heat races. But yeah, it was a very enjoyable race, Charlie, I think.
Yeah. So yes, Joey Logano winning the race for Ford, Kyle Busch second for Toyota, Austin Dillon third, actually. A very good result for him. I was surprised with him as well. Ed Jones fourth, fifth went the way of last season's champion Carl Larson. William Byron sixth, Cole Custer seventh, Christopher Bell eighth for Toyota. AJ Allmendinger, who surprised us all last year, winning one of the Indy Road Course race, was ninth. Kevin Harvick completing the top 10. Chase Elliott, I wouldn't say had the strongest of weekends, 11th, if I was honest with you, but he finished a decent 11th in the end there as well. And 12th was Harrison Burton there as well. So the next NASCAR race, there is actually a couple of meetings next week, non-championship. Duel at Daytona 1, that is on. Blue-Green Vacation, Duel at Daytona 2. Next weekend, though, is the main event, the Daytona 500. Sunday, the 20th of February, 7:30 lights out here in the UK. A major event, this one. The Daytona 500 kicks off the official season, so points will be awarded for this event. The winner will go into the playoffs. And last year's race was won, of course, by Michael McDowell after a last lap crash, which involved a multiple pile-up of drivers. So, yes, that will be coming up next Sunday. I cannot wait for the Daytona 500. Big event. We'll be celebrating as well. We'll be having a look at some highlights, celebrating the history event, and also paying tribute to Dale Earnhardt, who unfortunately crashed there just over 20 years ago on the final lap of that event in 2001. As well, moving on now, though, to Formula E very quickly. Preview Mexico City's E-Prix, which is going to be on just after 10 o'clock tonight. And a crazy end to qualifying with Eduardo Mortara spinning out after the end of his lap, and Pascal Wehrlein on pole for the Mexico City Prix. Zach, what did you make to qualifying?
Oh, yeah, I watched qualifying, Charlie. That was a chaotic end to qualifying, Charlie. I've not seen a car spin their way to second place before, Charlie. Not in my world. I've never seen that. But yeah, Mortara spin at the just over the start finish line cost, I would probably say, pole position. I mean, he was already falling behind a little bit in some respects towards the final sector, but that spin certainly cost him as well. It was Pascal Wehrlein that took the pole position, Charlie, with the race starting in 50 minutes. It'll be shown on Eurosport 2 and the Channel 4 YouTube channel as well. So Pascal Wehrlein can start here, Edward Mortara for that one as well. Andrea Lotta and Joanne Yvonne were the second row. Felix da Costa and Nick de Vries, 5th and 6th. I have to say, Mercedes so far, Charlie, very not doing quite well in qualifying, I have to say, Charlie, compared to what they did in Saudi Arabia a couple of weeks ago. We saw the likes of Van Dorn and Nick de Vries nearly not make it to the quarterfinals, Charlie, because they had poor runs in their groups. We nearly saw them go out in the first groups as well. Not so poor qualifying for Mercedes. This is Mexico, though, Charlie. Anything could happen in Mexico. It's an intriguing layout. It's one of those circuits that's not actually a street layout. It's a modified version of the F1 circuit. So it's a bit wider at times, and you'll have the stadium segment, and you'll have a very fast final sector towards the start-finish line, Charlie. That will be extremely fun to watch, I have to say. No doubt about it. But yeah, you have to say, Charlie, I very much enjoy. I'm enjoying the new format of qualifying after 3 races already. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting race, Charlie. So, in my opinion, a lot of exciting 45 minutes ahead, plus 1 lap for the drivers as well. I'm going to watch tonight to see how well Pascal Wehrlein does when he gets off, and to see whether the likes of Van Dorn, De Vries can make their way through the and I keep in mind Andrea Lotta as well, because he was 3rd position, Charlie. Wow, I have to say, very impressive for him in the Porsche. Porsche got their game up this weekend, I have to say, Charlie, very interestingly as well. But it's going to be the race that matters and the 25 points. This is just a single race this weekend. Next time they go by, it's going to be double. It's going to be double races again, but this is just single races. There's only one opportunity, Charlie, to pick up a win this weekend. So very important going for the championship forwards.
Yeah, and also watch Jaguar as well. Another disappointing qualifying for them, and another. I mean, Sam Bird only 18th in the TCS Racing Jaguar. Mitch Evans only 11th. I mean, Jaguar needs to have a good race because their car this year at the moment lacking. Oliver Askew 11th, not a bad qualifying from him. Can he make inroads? He's out-qualified his teammate, Jake Dennis. Wow. So Oliver Askew, I'm hoping, can get himself ahead of the mix there. But DS Techeetah looking strong, 4th and 5th. But it's going to be just interesting to see how Porsche get on. And the race will start just after around 10 o'clock tonight. I think it's 10:05 lights out in the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for that event. Very quickly now, before we move on to the next part of the show, which will be Conversation Corner on The Apprentice. A quick update from Beijing, the Olympic Winter Games taking place. Medals decided in several sports last week, including Michaela Schifrin, who unfortunately missed out on a gold medal in the Super G. Zach, plenty of action from Beijing over last week.
Well, I have to say, Charlie, it's certainly been a lot has happened as well. Let me go. I'm going to try and go look up as well. One of the teams that are not doing well this year, Charlie, is our own team, TGB. So far, they have they've not been very well. They've barely got a medal on the board, Charlie, so far, but they've been medalists throughout the whole competition. They have been hoping to get between 3 and 7 medals as well. But the relevant competitions they're in, such as the curling and the snowboarding, their competitors there have not really done so well in those sort of areas, and their chances of medals have started slipping away. But let me tell you what's been happening so far. Day 8, we've been going on as well. Let's talk about as well. Lindsay Jacobus, 16 years, to win her first Olympic gold medal, and she caught 2 in 4 days. She won the inaugural mixed team snowboard cross event for the US as well. What a great job by them! Congratulations to them. There was also some controversy as well, Charlie, because Camila Vieira's from the Russian Olympic Committee tested positive for a drug on Wednesday as well. So their medals at risk in that area. That there's a doping there, and that's why Russia are banned from competing on the Russian flag because of doping incidents that have been happening there, Charlie. It's not very good. Good in that parliament as well. The US ice men's hockey pulled off a 4-2 win over Canada Group A in the Premier League round, but they've got one more match to go, but they couldn't finish the top spot as well. The RAC won the 4x75.5 kilometers women's cross country skiing, finished ahead of Germany. And in the skating, gold for Netherlands, Suzanne Scotling, who I have to say, I watched that event. That was a great job of the Netherlands. Broke the world records in the quarterfinal and won gold in the final as well. In the Japan, the women's speed skating competition, they also set a world record as well. In that one, it was gold for Gao Tango for China in the speed skating, the men's 500 as well in that one. That one as well. So yeah, there's been a lot of action, Charlie, in terms of the Olympics, and in terms of where that leaves in the table, it's 8 gold medals each for Germany, Norway, 5 for the United States, Netherlands, and Great Britain's on 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. As I look in front of me at the moment, we're not usually that winter sports, anyways, Charlie, but 0 medals. That's quite a sight to see, I have to say, Charlie. Getting 0 medals at all. The competition is ending in about, I think it's 8 days' time.
Yeah, next weekend. Yeah.
The closing ceremony is going to be on the Sunday next week as well. So yeah, we got 8. We got probably So we've got 8 more days of competition left in the Winter Olympics so far, Charlie.
Yeah. Can Laura Dees get a medal for us in the skeleton? I'm going to be keeping an eye on her very closely in the women's skeleton. But yeah, plenty of action. I'd also like to update the luge as well. The luge events have been on. There was a gold. Germany have been dominant in that so far. Tobias Wendy and Tobias took gold in the men's luge doubles. That was an event that was on day 6 of the games a couple of days ago. Congratulations to Germany on a clean sweep of medals in the luge singles and doubles. They absolutely done really well in the luge event, and that is certainly a big step forward for the country in that medal. But obviously, we keep an eye on the skeleton, women's skeleton. Laura Dees, please come get a medal for us. So I hope we get a medal in the Winter Olympic Games. That'll be interesting indeed. But moving on now to Conversation Corner on my show now. Here it comes up on the screen. We're going to be talking all about the latest task on The Apprentice. And there will be some video for you coming soon on the task. But Zach, they had to go up to North Wales for last weekend to be tour guides. And an interesting firing from the process, because unfortunately, the other team lost. Again, Team Infinity, Diverse lost again. And it wasn't exactly a plain sailing task for them anyway.
Yeah. One thing I should point out first of all, Charlie, was Imrad's. First time he was on the winning team in all the challenges, Charlie.
Ash K, yeah.
Ash K, sorry, Ash K, my bad. Ash K, been all the episodes so far, we've seen him on the losing team. This week he was on the winning team. So my goodness, fair play to him. He's got this far so far, and he's been on the winning team this week. I mean, that's incredible as well. But Amy was the one that got fired as well for basically, not really being a team leader. Really, to be fair, Charlie. I think she was the one that declined to take on the project manager task. She hasn't even been project manager, and basically Lord Sugar basically saw the point where she wasn't really leading the team at any point, and because she, you got to have leadership in whatever business that you want Lord Sugar to be invested in. So she went. She was on the losing team in North Wales doing the tour guide. She didn't do too well in that one, I'm afraid. And then her team made several errors, which was led by Stephanie, by the way. They had both teams, by the way, made mistakes, having ticket prices be all over the shops. So sometimes it would be start at 60, and then go down to 40, and then go down to really cheap or expensive prices, Charlie. So yeah, and the problem is there was inconsistent prices throughout all over the place from both teams. The other problem as well was Stephanie was leading the task as well, was that it was raining where she was. It was raining, and her tour guide had to be shortened because the weather ruined it. Now that's not her fault, but that in some way shows that she wasn't playing ahead. She wasn't playing ahead thinking of what was going on as well. They had to cut short the painting session. The whiskey history was long, boring as well. They made about £350 profit, Stephanie's team, in the end, so they won, despite some of the poor things that they ended up doing. Caitlin, who's on the other team, made £200 as well. So it was a £150 gap in the overall profits that I've made. But I'm afraid for Catherine's team, and eventually Amy, who was not really came across as doing much, they're the ones who lost, and Amy was the one that got fired. I'm afraid.
Yeah, Zach, I have to say, on the reflection of the task, I was very disappointed with what the other team. I mean, it was close, but the other team, Akeem done this thing on a history lesson inside some mines. He didn't know what he was talking about half the time. He was trying to remember facts. Nick, though, was my highlight of the whole episode. For, I have to say, one of the most controversial tour guides you've ever seen. I think it was one of the worst. He almost looked like what is the word? He almost looked like a rattled train conductor or something. He literally, it was horrible. It was like, oh, this is the green. I don't know what it was called, but there was this like green part with some elephants in it or something. They might look good on Lord Sugar's Amstrad program. Trust me. But yeah. That is certainly what I heard from Nick on that one. He was clearly not known.
If you're promoting abstract, I can't wait for Lord Sugar to be the new David Attenborough. If that's the case, Charlie, I'm looking forward to seeing what he's like when he's 90 and still making programs. Oh, I that would be really in living memory when I'm older and I'm aging and all that sort of thing. That would be something quite real history to look at if for me.
Yeah. It is interesting, but what we're going to do before we move on, I'm going to play for you a video from The Apprentice of when things get really uptight in the ballroom. As this video here shows 3 candidates who were in the bottom 3 once getting fired over losing a task. Have a listen to this very, very closely, because this video is quite interesting. We're going to give you the reactions after this about what it's like to be in the final 3 in the ballroom. Have a listen to this.
you're not going to be the next project manager because I think you are a lost cause in this process. Stephen, you're fired.
First blood.
Sarah, I'm wondering why I should have confidence in you as a business partner. Sarah, you're fired. Let's get ready.
Double kill.
No chance. Don't waste my time.
I understand that, Lord Sugar, and I promise you I will do my ultimate aim to prove you that I can be your business partner.
Well, the thing is, you failed.
Please let me.
You're fired.
Triple kill.
Thank you there. Now, that is an example of a triple firing in The Apprentice. And he's done double ones as well. Zach, did you think the last week's firing was the right one, or do you think more candidates should have been fired from the process? Oh, apologies, I got him. Hello, Zach. Sorry, I muted you there.
That's right. That's fine. You know, if you think about it, you could have the argument that there should be more last week because of the gaming task as well. That was pretty bad. There was certain thing, you know, there's certain people making some, I have to say, pretty terrible mistakes that deserves an instant firing. You could have two of them if gone there, but I that was a while ago, wasn't it? The three people getting fired, Charlie.
Yeah.
I remember that quite well, and that was quite shocking because it was so bad that all three got fired. Like what they call it, the triple kill. But we haven't had that yet. I don't even know if we have the double firing yet, Charlie.
No, we haven't. No.
So I wonder if we might get that in the next coming weeks, Charlie. I think there'll be a point in the next couple of weeks where we get a double firing. Maybe it'll be the next episode. Or could be the after that. Next episode, Charlie, they're going to make electric cars, I believe, Charlie.
Yeah.
In the next episode, electric driverless vehicles. They must design, brand, and pitch their electric driverless pods. They'll be meeting with a major corporate client that looking to lease driverless vehicles, and the one that makes the biggest profit from the vehicles will win. And in one of them, the other team, you know what happens? So at least one of them gets fired, Charlie, if they have less profit than the other team as well. So yeah, that's one I'm really looking forward to. I'm a big fan of cars, Charlie. Electric cars are the future. Driverless cars are the future. Lord Sugar getting ahead of the curve. I'm looking forward to this one. It's certainly be interesting to see if I'm going to have to trust the people that are going to make electric cars in the future to see what they're like.
Nissan Leafs, Renault Zoes, BMW iX3s. Some of the electric cars I've named there are all on production right now. So, yeah, the candidates will put up another task. Episode 7 next. We're halfway through the process now. At least one candidate will be fired next week. Could be two. We don't know. But moving on now to the final part of the show, we're going to have a look at the papers. And then also the British Star and Red Devil will follow on as our final segment of the show. The papers now. This segment is the one where we talk about news. So here we go with the newspaper headlines. I've obtained this from the BBC. I will give you the latest headlines. So this is the Daily Mail, which says, Brits in Ukraine told to get out now. Certainly a very fierce headline there. Foreign Office issues alert amid warning Putin will invade in days. The Daily Telegraph said Russia set to invade any day now. Biden says war in Ukraine is imminent. UK and US tell citizens to leave. Also, Johnson to deny breaking law at Downing Street Flat ABBA party. Was Mamma Mia playing that day, I wonder? Financial Times fears Biden fears Ukraine attack is close. Also, ex-spy chief urges UK to strain every sinew to keep arms listed in London. The Daily Mirror says, get out. Brits in Ukraine warned. Expats told to flee for safety. The Times says Britain's told to get out of Ukraine once again as well. Also, Deanna Davidson, 28, according to a rock star politician, needs to get a grip, as apparently she's been on TikTok recently. Daily Express told invasion fears Britain's told to get out now. And the Guardian, we're going to get rid of that. That's a bit inappropriate there. The Guardian says Treasury push to end free COVID tests. despite warnings. Zach, what do you make of the latest papers?
Yeah, let's obviously start with the Daily Mail, because this is dominant across multiple papers, Charlie. But let's start with the Daily Mail. Britain's in Ukraine told to get out now because the Foreign Office has basically told the citizens to basically leave Ukraine. The embassy, most of them have been told to evacuate. Some of them are still there, but basically. British has been told to leave Ukraine, and because of this situation deteriorating in Ukraine, Charlie, it's going to be on the headlines for most of the next couple of days, no doubt about it, Charlie. As well, the Foreign Office, there's several countries. When you get like France, Germany, Israel, several countries as well, basically telling them to evacuate the citizens. You've got problems, Charlie. You know that it's inevitable. That they know intel of intelligence suggesting that something very bad is going to happen soon. That's why the messages come out now to tell the citizens to evacuate, because the signs aren't looking good, Charlie. Let's go down a bit as well. Russia set to invade any day now. Yeah, the intelligence from what the US suggesting, Charlie, is that they could invade potentially as early as Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday next week. Now, there's been a pattern, Charlie, and I noticed this as well. When Russia has done invasions, done things during the Olympics, in countries, so Beijing, China, there's been a pattern of Russia wanting to do things during the Olympics, and we're potentially going to have an invasion during the Olympics. It really does sound shocking, Charlie. It really does sound shocking. There's Johnson to deny breaking law at Downing Street ABBA party as well, Charlie. Now he's going to get his a special lawyer apparently. From what I understand, he's getting his own private lawyer. But it's interesting, Charlie. It's gone from I didn't know there was parties in my flat to I actually didn't break the law whilst there was a party in my flat. It really does sound, frankly, Charlie, ridiculous. In my personal opinion, it really does sound quite bad. In my view, I think it's a silly excuse as well. The FT weekend, Biden feeds Ukraine attack is close. Yes. That's not surprising, really. To be fair, we've had that on the front of the other pages as well. I think it's probably going to be close as well, Charlie, based on what the intelligence is saying as well. So, yeah, there is problems there in terms of that front, Charlie. Let's go down to the Mirror. Brits and Ukraine won't get out. Told to flee perspective. Russia afraid. I mean, yeah, the agenda, Charlie, has just changed so much. It's changed just loads. It's changed from, the agenda's gone from Partygate, from gas bills and everything like that to Ukraine. I expect this is what's going to be dominating the agenda, Charlie, going forward, in terms of what's happening there as well. That's the Mirror front page as well. The Times is, again, Charlie, it's the same thing there. They're all focusing on Ukraine. Britain's told to get out of Ukraine. That's happening there as well. And the Daily Express as well. Invasion fears. Britain told to get out now. Putting dates for going to Ukraine. Again, the same thing, basically the same thing as well, Charlie, in terms of what's happening. And the Guardian's going for a little bit different. Treasury puts to end free COVID tests despite its warning. This is obviously there. The Telegraph has obviously got sort of some of the details that come out of the Learn to Live with COVID plan. Like the Treasury has funded all the resources available to get free COVID tests if possible. But they've decided to, they're going to eventually drop that. Not surprising, really, Charlie. We've had that before in terms of what's happening there. As well, and the weekend Johnson told by top Tories, don't try to cling to power. This is obviously the behind the scenes of what's going on in the Tory party, Charlie. As well, there's certainly those who have the opinion on it of what's going on there, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes. I think that's going to be secondary to what could happen at the moment in Ukraine. That will come secondary on the line. What's the Sun say? This is talk about the Rebecca Vardy check.
And Khalid Rooney scandal, yeah.
Khalid Rooney scandal. This is back in the paper, and there's been some leaks this weekend about the texts that have been unveiled, Charlie. I have to say, Charlie, my goodness me, some of the foul mouthing from Rebecca Vardy in some of the texts that claimed her phone was hacked and everything like that. Oh, dear me. I don't think I'll buy that argument, I have to say, Charlie. As well, the Daily Star as well. Let's go through that. One giant leap for Moonkind. They're boffins, Jim, but not as we know them. They're saying eggheads say the answer to world poverty is to sell this giant ball of cheese. Do you know what, Charlie? I haven't had the ball of cheese for ages, Charlie. I haven't had them for ages. But when I had them as a younger kid, they were delicious. And I don't think I've ever heard them contribute to child poverty. So, yeah, I really enjoyed them. And I would eat them again if possible. I don't want them to go because I really like them. Anyway, Charlie, I think from what I'm seeing, I think we do actually have 2 more papers that are actually being released ahead tomorrow. By the way, there will be more coming out at 10:30 tonight. The Sunday Express and the Observer got front pages out. Let's look at it here. The Sunday Express doesn't focus on Ukraine, but it focuses on Jacob Rees-Mogg. Coming soon, Brexiteers' big wins for Britain, because Jacob Rees-Mogg has been reshuffled this week. Charlie, in a minor cabinet reshuffle that saw Mark Spencer move from Chief Whip to the Leader of the House. That's a controversial move. And Jacob Rees-Mogg moved from the Leader of the House to Brexit Opportunities Minister in the Cabinet Office. Well, I don't know what opportunities these are able to promote. What will the opportunities be able to one of the Dover queues at the moment? I have to say, Charlie.
Yeah, big migrants problems,
big migrant problem, and the lorry queues at Dover. I do wonder whether that's the Brexit opportunities he was told to push out there. I'll be a little bit worried if that's the case, Charlie, because that's not the Brexit I imagined of thinking of. The Observer is again deciding to focus on, not surprisingly, Vladimir, the Ukraine situation, and the president's phone call with Putin. You will pay heavy cost as well. The Russians denied it. They've denied everything these days, Charlie. But yeah, it still goes ahead. So we can't. I don't know how you can trust the words of the Russians these days. But yeah, that's the situation. The focus, Charlie, has gone from cost of living crisis to this, the situation in Russia, understandably, and I expect the situation will be on the papers. Oh, sorry about that. Within the next few days, as well, and not surprisingly so, Charlie. Yeah, they expect the situation that the media is going to focus on, and rightly so, is going to be Russia, because there's a lot of news that's potentially going to come out of that. It's a pretty scary times ahead for Russia, for the Ukraine, Charlie.
Yeah, it is. We'll keep updated with that, because it's a very important issue. As I said, I hope that people in Ukraine are okay right now. Just means Russia gets expanded if this happens. The country becomes basically another part of Ukraine, becomes another part of Russia. Simple as that, really.
Sad, really.
I know. But we're going to move on now to the Great British Star and Red Devil. And I have controversial pickings this week.
Oh, go ahead.
The Raw for the 2 nominations. Now, the first nomination on my list is one that we haven't covered at all on my podcast, which I didn't think we should have covered this. But I'm going to give it this week to some people who have been standing up at the border over in Canada. Welcome, everyone, to the Canadian Truckers. Now, you might have heard these guys called Freedom Convoy, because these people have been standing up against vaccine and COVID-19 testing mandates on the border in Canada and America. And I have to say, I think this deserves to be mentioned. Activists have been seen blocking Ambassador Bridge, the busiest crossing between the US and Canada, for nearly a week, as they've been protesting against COVID-19 restrictions. About 20 protesters milled outside on Saturday morning while others stayed in their cars. I mean, look at this, guys. This here is what I call freedom convoy, protesting against restrictions. Justin Trudeau has been under a lot of pressure from Canadians. There is actually a state of emergency that's just been declared, and some pretty crazy legislation, I have to say, meaning people who block roads, bridges and walkways or other critical infrastructure could be fined $100,000 and serve up to a year in jail. It's not like Insulate Britain where they blocked roads unlawfully. This to me seems like people are actually basically just protesting against COVID restrictions. Look, I mean, Paris as well. There's also been a freedom convoy in Paris as well that's been hit. So, yeah, plenty of protests on COVID land this week. Now, my Great British Red Devil of the week is actually from the Winter Olympic Games. Now, I'm going to talk about this women's ice hockey match between Canada and the Russian Olympic Committee. Now, I know a lot of you guys watch ice hockey. I know a lot of you guys watch the Olympic Games. But what a bizarre match between the Canadians and the Russian Olympic Committee team. Of course, Russia have been in the news recently over this Ukraine scandal. But in the Olympic Winter Games, Russia have actually and Canada had to wear face masks whilst on the ice, N95 masks. Would you believe it? Over claims here that the match was delayed for an hour while Canadians waited for COVID-19 test results to come back from the Russian team before opting to play in masks. Our coaches and medical staff were not going to put in a situation for them. I mean, this is... Look at this. This is extraordinary. I've never seen this in all my life in any Olympic Winter Games. To play ice hockey in face coverings just makes you look, in my view, like you're the odd one out. And quite frankly, what some people call like a total pervert. So, yeah, to me, this is going to earn my Red Devil of the Week. Zach, what do you make of my nominations for Great British Star and Red Devil of the Week?
Yeah, I think the Canadian one is a bit weird, isn't it? Because I get the reason, but it's a bit weird. Nobody else is doing it, Charlie. Nobody else. Those other teams are wearing face coverings underneath their hockey helmets. It's strange, isn't it? I don't quite understand that personally, in my opinion. As well, the convoys though. Look, I get what they're protesting. But are we really celebrating people shutting down businesses, destroying, that sort of thing? When we complain about them doing Black Lives Matter protests and all that sort of thing, now we're celebrating when it's something to do, when it's supporting their agenda. Yeah, nah. If we're going to have a consistent approach, Charlie, disrupting businesses, bad, whatever, in my opinion. Yeah.
So, Zach, what are your nominations?
Well, I'm going to start with the British Star, actually, because I think you will like this one, Charlie. And it's kind of sad, but it's kind of, impressive at the same time. I'm going to give it to an English pub, Charlie. I'm going to give it also to a landlord as well. His name is Christo Tafali, who was I'm afraid, the last ever landlord of an English pub, as I'm afraid has closed down after 1,000 years of being there. It's been this pub, Charlie, your old Fighting Cocks, that's a serious name, in St Albans. It's been in business since 793 AD.
Wow.
790. That's over 1,000 years, Charlie. Would you believe it? I couldn't believe when I saw this that there was a pub that was 1,000 years old and still going, even during like the plague, several financial crises, Charlie. But landlord Christian Fowler has done a great job of trying to run the pub during obviously COVID and everything like that, the hospitality industry as well, whilst it suffers as well. And COVID, unfortunately, it's ran out the road, I'm afraid, Charlie. I'm really afraid to say that. And it is such a sad moment because this pub was run service for so many years. It's just one of those iconic and oldest pubs in the UK. And I have to say, but for their service, Charlie, the Christo Tafali, the landlord, and your old Fighting Cocks, which is actually the name of the I know you can laugh over that one.
There was a pub in Scotland, I think, that Green King done a competition to rename the Black Bitch pub, if I remember.
Yeah, that's an actual name. But this pub and its owner is the Great British Star of the week for the many years of service this pub has provided to a community, and it's shut down. It's just so sad, but I've also wanted to recognise it as well, Charlie, because the pub has been an incredible part of British history, no doubt about it, Charlie. The Red Devil this week. Well, do you know what, Charlie? I was going to give it them to anyway until you mentioned that. I'm actually going to give the Red Devil to the Convoys. I know it's your star. It's going to be my Red Devil. I mean, that's the first time that's happened, Charlie. That we've given something. We've mentioned something similar on here, but we're giving it opposite ends. The Convoys are pathetic, from my opinion. They're embarrassing. They're causing a lot of disruption. It's unnecessary. Issues, Charlie, and I'm afraid it's causing a lot of people disruption. The police, I'm afraid, has had to get involved. It's boring. The course is silly. I don't disagree with it. I think it's a waste of time and energy for these people, Charlie. And I'm afraid the Convoys are just sad, really. It's a minority of the population that disagree, but it seems to be a loud minority, Charlie, that are, hyping this up and letting it happen. And it could spread as well, Charlie. It could go to US cities as well, potentially, which is extremely worrying, in my opinion. And that if it gets to US cities and disrupts the economy there, because those who have US borders with Canada, they're having problems with business already over a COVID mandate. And I'm afraid it's possible that, there's talks about them potentially disrupting the Super Bowl on Sunday as well, which is worrying. Potentially they could get to Washington, which is it's just ridiculous, Charlie. There's going to be a full force of the law if this happens. I'm not surprised, Charlie. But so the Convoys are this week's Red Devils.
Yeah, Zach. Thanks for the nominations. We do have free speech on this show as well, guys. I just want to say we have free speech. Me and Zach had completely different views on that, but that's what it is. It's free speech. We have a chance to debate things, and that's what it is. And I have to say with the pub as well, it's a historic moment for the country. For a pub, which I would say it's historic. It's a sad moment, but it was a historic moment for a pub that served hundreds of thousands of years. All I can say is that deserves a nomination. I would have also nominated Vladimir Putin and Boris Johnson again for more problems. But yeah, that's it, guys. And unfortunately, I've run over the time a little bit. It's the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And we'll see you again next week for another episode of Charlie Tolhurst Show. And yeah, stay tuned with all the latest news that is currently on at the moment on the telly. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.